Hello and welcome to the Municipal Report. I'm Maureen Parenta. This evening I'm meeting with a local mayor who served for 7 years, plus being a councilman for 2 years. That would be the mayor of Haworth, John Dean DeRienzo. Thanks for joining us, Mayor.
Thank you for inviting me, Maureen.
What we'd like to do, and starting our discussion about Haworth, is first starting out with a brief description of the town.
Best way to describe Haworth without getting my neighboring mayors angry is it's an oasis in the desert. It is absolutely beautiful. It's about 1 square mile, 2 golf courses, and the reservoir, very heavily treed, 1 street that goes through the town, 1 block of businesses, about 1,125 homes, and about 3,000 people.
Certainly does sound like an oasis.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. What's a major issue that residents are concerned about these days in town?
I think the major issue, which doesn't have anything to do really with the borough council or the mayor, is the Board of Education, because they're faced with the problem of an old school building, and they are trying to figure out whether to do some renovation or to rebuild, and that seems to be the hot topic right now. Coupled with the fact, as you know, the water company and Rivervale Realty have just released the fact that they've come to a settlement on the land, which concerns us very much because the western portion of Haworth, half of a golf course is owned by Rivervale Realty, and the other half is owned by the golf course. So we are in negotiations now with the intent to keep all of the land preserved open.
Great. I know a major concern is budget and taxes. What's the status of the budget in Haworth?
As usual, the council passed the budget in a timely fashion and passed it on to the state, where it's lurking in some dark room at this point, so we haven't been notified of its approval. Basically, the tax rate will go up about 4 cents for the municipal portion of the budget, which isn't bad considering the services that the town provides. Unfortunately, all mayors will say the same thing, or people on a council. When you sit at the meetings and you look at your budget, the biggest problem we have is twofold. 60%, 70% of the budget is mandated by the state or by contracts. And the second thing is the way we pay our taxes in the state. As long as it's related to property, then every time something passes in the state, it gets right back onto our property taxes. But we've been very fortunate in holding it down. Next year, if we are lucky, it'll probably be a 0 tax increase.
How has the history of tax increases been over the years? Has it remained stable? Have there been many changes?
With the exception of the year that we were reevaluated, which happens all through Bergen County, where the county makes you reassess the value of the homes, we had an unusual tax increase of about 29 cents. Since that time, we've had a 0 tax increase, 4.5, 4. That's about right.
Many towns are now looking into possible regionalization of services in order to keep expenses down. It's so expensive. Is there any areas that Haworth is looking into that kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely. I'm president of the Northern Valley Mayors Association, and the mayors get together monthly to discuss exactly that. We are members now of a cooperative agreement on the DPW, so part of our road program is done in cooperation with a whole bunch of other towns. We are cooperating with other towns with recycling, and we learn from each other. A good example is your previous guest, the mayor of Denver, Dick Schooler, was talking about grass and how to remove grass. We had a different method. By watching your show, we're going to change our method and go the way Dick is doing his. That'll save the town about $18,000 a year.
I'm glad you learned something useful from this program.
Absolutely. But that's the kind of sharing that we do. I think the big topics that people talk about is the regionalization of either schools or police. And that topic is always on the table. We are not actively considering that because of the fact that that's home rule, and the minute you start talking about transferring services out, it's a problem.
Are there plans for major capital purchases for the town within this year?
Actually, we've been very lucky. Since I became the mayor, the building program that we embarked on, as you know, we built a new library and renovated the Borough Hall. We've also constructed a DPW building. And then the nice part of our town is the volunteer spirit. We have a brand new 2-story baseball building that the coaches and the executive staff of the Baseball Association, Bruce Salato being the commissioner, put together and built at no charge to the town. And now we have a 2-story baseball building. We have a beautiful gazebo at the pond, which was donated by funds through Dr. Dorney, who was the superintendent of schools who passed away. Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and the Girl Scouts and the Women's Club donated quite a bit. The pumps in the pond were donated by the Cub Scouts, for example. The new barbecue at Memorial Field was donated by one of the country clubs. So we're kind of fortunate that all of the doing that we really had to do is just about done. One of the things that we're considering, the senior citizens are looking at the possibility of a senior citizen center. All right, and that's going to take some time because it's up to them. They're doing a study, they're doing a survey to see A, if it's needed, and B, if they want it. And that would probably be the last major capital improvement in the borough.
You mentioned the library that had been built. How is that working out?
Excellent. The library membership is up. We're members of Buckles. And it's really very difficult in the town because under the way the state gives out funding, towns are required each year to give a library more than they would normally give other O&E budgets. Our library is coming to the end of that, but we have a very active group, which are the Friends of the Library, which are trying to raise money on the side to support the library. And as long as membership continues and people use it, it's excellent. And Buckles is a fantastic system because you can go into the library and order a book by computer, and any library in Bergen County who has it, it's shipped to you within 24 hours.
That's great.
So it's really turned out quite well. Plus, it's also used as a meeting room for other organizations.
Great. We talked about the municipal budget. I wonder about the school budget, which is always a separate issue. Did that pass?
Our school budget did pass. And like all towns, the mayor sits and listens to people who had their children go through school. And why am I paying as much as I'm paying now? If you look at most municipal budgets, the municipal portion is really not as large as the combined regional high school and the local school, and the county being underneath that. We're very proud of the education our children get, not only at the Haworth Public School, but also Northern Valley Regional High School. And it's tough. It's tough because the actual enrollment in our school is about 350 children. And it's costing about $7,000 to put a child through our local school system, about $11,000 to go to the high school, which is quite high.
Well, what we'll do now is we'll take a break right now, and when we come back, we'll learn more about Haworth. Hello, and welcome back to Municipal Report. I'm speaking with Haworth Mayor John Dean DeRienzo, and let's continue our discussion of Haworth.
Okay.
Why don't you tell me about the borough's master plan?
Very interesting. The borough of Haworth in 1984 had a revisit to a master plan. That was during the Mount Laurel heydays when everything was going on. Tremendous uproar within the community regarding Mount Laurel. And as a result, the master plan that was worked on by the planning board was never adopted by a mayor and council. So starting about 2 years ago, Tom Ferns and the members of the planning board and our attorney Bob Cantillo got together and started working to completely revise our master plan. And basically the concept is to divide the town into the western section, which is environmental, keep it that way, don't touch anything, and redistrict the entire community. At the same time, we appointed a environmental commission, which is headed this year by Nancy Wysocki, and they did an environmental resource inventory, which is fascinating, which is now part of our master plan, which really depicts every environmental thing that we should be concerned about within the town of Haworth. Those two groups getting together with the attorneys and our planners, David Zimmerman, are now at the point where they've redone the ordinances concerning all of the planning and zoning areas of the town, which will be brought to the mayor and council before June. Very important because with everything that's been going on as far as development and the Council on Affordable Housing, we're really very proud of it. It's at the point where it'll probably be a blueprint for the entire state. Chet Mattson from the Bergen County Planning has been working with us with consultants. And in our town, what we've done as part of the state master plan is incorporated what we've done locally, and Nancy Smith is our representative. And probably 95% of Haworth in the state master plan is now classified as an environmental area where no development can take place. And we're very proud of it. A lot of work went into it.
What is the borough's number of homes regarding the Mount Laurel decision and all of that?
Originally it was in the 80s. When they revisited it, it was down to about 65. At this particular junction in time, we're still in negotiations with them because we have a unique situation. We made a provision for it in our master plan, but under the law, we don't have to put in a Mount Laurel housing element by selling off borough land. So at this point, there is no borough land available, one. And two, the privately owned land, which is mostly the golf course and the Hackensack Water Company property, is not really interested. So what we've been trying to do is develop a plan between both groups so that we can honor the Council on Affordable Housing thing. But as you know, the dynamics change each year depending upon who's in the state house at the time. But we're still in negotiations, which means basically a builder's developing agreement can't take place in Haworth. They can't come in as long as we're in that particular situation. But we haven't been certified yet.
So you're very concerned with conservation of open spaces?
Yeah, I think anybody who lives in Haworth, you can walk out of your house and within 100 feet you're in some type of a woods. It's fascinating to me, especially at the golf courses. We have a large population of fox, which, as your mayor, you find that out. And one of the problems we have is the fox running out of the woods, stealing the golf balls, all right, and bringing them back in because they think they're birds' eggs.
So what are the police doing? What are they doing about this, huh?
They decided a very clever thing. They were telling the golfers they should color the golf balls a certain way so that they wouldn't be picked up. It failed miserably. All right. We also have deer in the town because of the reservoir and so forth. So it's really quite nice. It really is.
That's lovely. Is there any development plan for town? I understand that there's a building for the Spectrum for Living.
Yeah, I think I was extremely proud of the residents of the town as well as my fellow council members and the people who work at the Borough Hall. Ann Fay, the administrator, and Lorraine Roth, her assistant, worked very hard with Spectrum for Living. Because when people think about Spectrum for Living, it's coming into a community, the rumors are absolutely unbelievable that fly around. I mean, phone calls of, you know, it's a prison rehabilitation center and drug addicts and so forth. But Spectrum held a lot of public meetings in town. And Joan Fraser, who is on our council, and her committee, which is real estate, met with them. And they've chosen a site. We've appeared before community development. And they've gotten their funding, and hopefully it will be built within the next year. And I think most people in town have a NIMBY factor, you know, not in my backyard, but when you get to something like this, it's a moral responsibility. And I was really proud of the people with the response.
That's great. What should borough residents know about the borough services?
I think most of the borough residents, like myself as a taxpayer, you sometimes take for granted some of the borough services. Our DPW, which is Marty Million, is in charge of it, do an outstanding job. If you go through Haworth from now until just before the summer, it looks like a garden. The way they plant the flowers and so forth, the way they take care of the pond. During the snowstorms, our streets were absolutely immaculate. So DPW does a fantastic job. We maintain a 13-member police force. Very proud of our response time. Within 2 minutes, we have a police officer there.
Great.
When we did the renovation of the Borough Hall, we did a state-of-the-art police station. So their communication systems are absolutely fantastic. The people who work at the borough office, and it's a very small group, as I mentioned before, Mrs. Fay and Mrs. Roth, Mrs. Villani and Mrs. Wheeler, who handle the taxes, and then we have our court clerk, Ruth Murphy, and her assistant, Judy, do a fabulous job. Residents enjoy coming down and talking to them, all right? And our library staff is excellent as well. So our professional staff, our paid staff, do an excellent job. And really a borough administrator is the one who really runs the borough because all of us are volunteers. The volunteer groups, such as the fire department, absolutely fabulous. They just had a big wet down last week. We had our new fire truck was broken in, and they do an outstanding job for volunteers. The ambulance corps, again, response time, excellent. Police auxiliary do an excellent job. Biggest problem we have is the same as most towns, and that is daytime coverage because of, you know, people working and so forth. But the borough services are really excellent. And you take on top of that, and I guess that's why I thoroughly enjoy being a mayor, all of the committees, commissions, and boards that meet, that do everything, all right, from recreation, shade tree, to name a few, 300 volunteers, plus your people who are involved in athletics and so forth. And that's what really makes a town. It's people getting together and getting things done. And it's very enjoyable.
Is there any particular volunteer area that's really in need of extra help?
At this particular time, I would say the ambulance corps first, The training for the ambulance corps is extensive. I took the EMT training as a volunteer just to see what it was. I was absolutely, it just blew my mind. It was 110 hours of classroom study, plus 10 hours in an emergency room. So it's a real commitment. And like everything else, if you need an ambulance, you want them there and you want them there quick. That group particularly needs extra help, daytime especially. Fire department always can use extra people. After that, I would say probably our Recreation Commission and Recreation Committee, because they have a very heavy agenda and they need a lot of workers. Very important.
Okay. Well, you're certainly telling me a lot about Haworth. What we'll do is we'll take a break now for some public service messages, and when we come back, we'll hear even more about Haworth. Welcome back to Municipal Report. So, Mayor DeRienzo, why don't you tell me about the programs in town for children?
Exceptional. The town of Haworth probably has one of the greatest youth programs that has ever been set up, and 99% of it is volunteer. Our soccer program, which is run by the Commissioner of Soccer, Mr. Ferentz, started off 15 years ago, and has expanded to the point where I would say probably 80% of the children participate. It's an outdoor program, it's an indoor program, and the coaches, who are all volunteers, actually started working with a local school to put a soccer team together at the local school. And myself, as a coach, I love it because I coach the first graders and kindergarten, which is fabulous, and we teach them the basics of soccer. Baseball program is the same way. As I said, Mr. Salato is the commissioner of that. That runs in the spring. We have a minor league, we have a T-ball league, we have a major league, we have a Knickerbocker league, which may win the championship this year, and tremendous amount of involvement from the parents, not only the dads and moms who coach, but also the people who run the snack stand and so forth. We have a fledgling basketball program, which has just started. And then we have the great type of recreation for youth, which is not structured. We have an ice skating rink in town, which is used for the newest sport, which is rollerblade, hockey and rollerblading. We're outside of the skateboard phase right now. That seems to be passé. In addition to that, we have a very active Brownie and Girl Scout troop. We have a Boy Scout troop in town, Troop 73. Mr. Jasnowski is the Scoutmaster. Very proud of that. They've been averaging, up until the youth started to decline in age, 2 Eagle Scouts a year, which is fantastic. Our Cub Scout program is kind of neat. We have about 70 young men involved in that. The Cub Master is a very nice person, me. And we've just finished doing our annual geranium sale, which leaves most of us 3 or 4 nights trying to figure out who didn't get a geranium or what color was right and so forth. Then through the library, through Story Hour and things that they do, and the school, it's all combined. The police are very active with the DARE program, which is really, really good. And our police have, under Chief Galgano, have a real good rapport with our kids, to the point where it's not a situation where they don't know them. They know them by name, they know their faces, and the police can stop and talk to them, and it's really kind of neat. So the youth programs are really kind of super in our town.
That's wonderful. So what are you doing for senior citizens?
Very independent group. Senior citizens have a leisure club that they belong to, which is a combination of towns, and also have a senior citizens committee within the borough of Haworth. They pretty much do their own agenda, and they do what they want to do, and you better do what they want you to do.
So you're not trying to tell them anything?
Oh, I would never dare. No, I'm a young kid. They straightened me right out. I even tried to show my AARP card, and that wasn't good enough.
Not good enough.
What they're doing now is they're in the process of doing a survey, because the federal money is available for the possibility of a senior citizen center, which would be adjacent to the library probably. But it's at the point now where they themselves are looking to see if A, they want it, B, if it's needed, because obviously not in the initial stages, but later on it would be a cost to the town as far as maintenance. But a super group. We have a very large senior citizens community who also are very active through the Women's Club and through various other groups, working with the youth. So it really kind of works out kind of nice.
That's great. Now, how does the borough keep the residents informed of everything that's going on?
Communications within the borough are very hard. What I find is we have usually 3 or 4 newsletters a year, and then specific things are sent out as special bulletins. The beauty of a town as small as Haworth, with only 1,125 homes, is when you're as heavily involved as I am between the Scouts and the soccer and baseball and so forth, they know you. And the nice part is if somebody wants something, they can pick up the phone and call you directly. They can call other council members, and they come and knock on your door. Or they'll see you at the field when you're coaching and so forth. So the communications are pretty good.
Very good. Well, hopefully the show is also a good way of getting the word out.
Oh, I think absolutely, because this way people get a chance to listen to the mayor and also input. As I said to you earlier, one of the things we asked for were people to send in different ideas and suggestions. One of them was the grass recycling we talked about earlier. Another was that the businesses in town raised an interesting point. Why don't more people who live there patronize their businesses? And I thought that was something we should mention. They also talked about revitalizing and redoing the Terrace Street area, which is a one-block commercial district, to do that. Some of the other things they said were kind of cute, and we can get into that near the end of the show.
Okay, very good. I understand things that are coming up in the fall. There's the annual Haworth Day.
Yes, we're very proud of that. Most towns have a July 4th celebration. We have a Memorial Day celebration, which is strictly for Memorial Day. And then we decided several years ago to have a Celebrate Haworth Day, which would take place as soon as the children get back in school. So it's the second weekend. Some people accuse us of doing it because we're celebrating the children coming back into school.
That can't be true.
Not true. But it's a day that's filled with activities for the children, food and games. All the various service organizations in town come out and participate. Fire department will burn a car down and do a demonstration, and the ambulance corps is there. And then at night we have the celebrated fireworks display over the borough of Haworth.
That was for the big kids.
For the big kids. Actually, only the big kids. But it's really kind of a nice day. And it really ties in because, as we've discussed before the show, Cablevision is going to be doing a program on the history of Haworth, and that's something I'm really looking forward to because some of our residents, Mary Lou Boyd in particular, has been working diligently in preparing for this. And it's a kind of a record that you really want to keep. And as we discussed earlier with our police chief, the concept of taping our children as they grow and they go through the school system, which Cablevision is offering as a free service to the borough, is excellent because our police chief is very excited about it, and so is our DARE officer, and we're looking forward to starting that in September.
Good. So we'll get more definite details out to residents about those things
yes, we will.
They come along. For a gentleman who's been involved in public life for just a few years, would you recommend that public service is a valuable thing to do?
Absolutely. I mean, everybody always complains about the fact, let somebody else do it, and that's nonsense. If you like people and you like your town, and that's where you spend 80% of your time, and that's where your children grow, you should get involved. Because even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the greatest thing you can give to a town is your own time, and I heartily recommend it. With all the nonsense you read about with people saying it's aggravating and it's time-consuming, you just look at the kids in our town or our seniors or our town, and you get very proud of it, and it's a lot of fun.
Now, you mentioned doing time.
Oh, yes. One of the projects that we're doing in the borough of Haworth is the Creative Playground, which is constructing a playground. So for my fellow mayors, what we did, we had this picture taken, which is going to be used as a fundraiser for the Creative Playground, which is being constructed 16 June to 20 June, which is absolutely free to the taxpayers. So it's a lovely picture of the mayor in jail clothes, and the idea is that you put me in jail and then pay for me to stay there. So we may never see each other again, Maureen.
Yeah, what are your hopes for bail?
I may be locked up for quite a while, unfortunately.
Well, I think that's a very noble effort.
Well, the other members of the council are participating as well, and other people in the town, so it should be a lot of fun.
Great. Right. Well, I want to thank you for coming in to give us a really great overview of what's happening in the borough.
And I want to thank you for having us and for Cablevision making this service available to the people of Haworth.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
We want to ask our viewers to join us again for another episode of Municipal Report when we visit and learn about another local town. For Municipal Report, I'm Maureen Parenta. Thank you.